Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. The Taking of Pelham 123 is an American crime drama film that was directed by Joseph Sargent. The movie stars Walter Matthau, Robert Shaw, Martin Balsam, and Hector Elizondo, with Peter Stone adapting the screenplay from a 1973 novel of the same name. The storyline goes that right under everybody's nose, a determined gang of 4 color-coded and armed-to-the-teeth criminals managed to take over New York City's Pelham 123 subway train. The confined Metro rail coach is crammed with 18 helpless passengers. The ruthless criminals threaten to start killing one hostage a minute unless a massive $1 million ransom is delivered within 1 hour. A frenzied race against time begins as the gruff Transit Authority police lieutenant tries to outwit his cunning adversary, Mr. Blue. At first, the Metropolitan Transit Authority refused to cooperate with the filmmakers. In the original novel that the film is based on, there was more detail about how the hijackers would accomplish their goal, and recognized that the caper's success did not rely solely on defeating the dead man feature in the motorman's cab. But the screenwriter Stone made a fictional override mechanism the linchpin of the script. The production company made the argument that they weren't making a handbook on subway hijacking, they were just making a movie. But the Transit Authority was pretty resistant to the film. They felt like that it might be a stimulant, not to professional criminals like the ones in the movie, but to kooks that were out there. Cold professionals can see the absurdities of the plot from the very start, but a kook doesn't reason that out at all. After 8 total weeks of negotiations, and through the influence of the mayor, John Lindsay, the MTA relented and allowed them to make the film. But they required that the producers take out a $20 million insurance policy, including what they called kook coverage, just in case that the movie inspired a real-life hijacking. All of this was in addition to the $250,000 fee that they charged them for the use of the track, subway station, subway cars, and Transit Authority personnel. They also only agreed to the film if they depicted no graffiti in it. They felt like showing graffiti would glorify it. The production began filming with scenes inside the subway tunnel first. These were filmed over the course of 8 weeks in an area called the Fulton Street Line. This part was closed to the public in 1946, and it became a common filming location and later home to the New York Transit Museum. That area was used not only for this film, but for The French Connection and Death Wish. Although this was an abandoned spur of the track, trains ended up rumbling through adjacent tracks on regular schedules. Dialogue was continually marred by the noise from this and had to be adjusted in post-production. The third rail of the subway, which carries 600 volts of direct current, was shut off, and 3 protective bars were placed against the rail. But the cast and crew were told to treat it as if it were still live. There was one scene where Robert Shaw was to step on the third rail, and when they were rehearsing the scene, Shaw accidentally stubbed his toe, and the sparks from his special effect boot flew everywhere. It said that he turned white as a sheet. They constantly wore surgical masks the entire time they were down there to stop dust and debris from entering their lungs. They said there were rats everywhere that were the size of cats, and when they would jump down on the train tracks, clouds of black dust would rise into the air, making it impossible for them to shoot again until it settled down. They said they felt like there was bacteria and mold that people hadn't discovered yet, and bugs that were mammoth. Walter Matthau said he got sick during the filming, and it was one of the strangest colds that he ever had. One morning he just woke up with no voice, and they had to shut down production for that day. After 2 months of shooting in this tunnel, the production moved to Filmways Studios in East Harlem, where a replica of the Transit Authority's Brooklyn Control Center was constructed. Filmways was originally built about 1920. They ended up demolishing the building in the 1980s. In the scene where the two officers arrive at the subway station to deliver the ransom money, one can get a glimpse of the bright neon sign for the Belmore Cafeteria that's right across the street. This establishment played a more prominent role in another classic 1970 film. That was Taxi Driver, and it was a place where the cabbies would take their breaks during their shifts. The aliases for the 4 train hijackers were Mr. Blue, Mr. Green, Mr. Gray, and Mr. Brown. They each boarded the train at different subway stops. Mr. Green at 59th Street Station, Mr. Gray at 51st Street Station, Mr. Brown at Grand Central Station, and lastly, Mr. Blue at 28th Street Station. All the hijackers wear false mustaches and large framed glasses and reversible coats. All of this done so that they look identical and will be tough to identify. Robert Shaw, the controlling character in this film, was married to an actress named Mary Urey, who you'll remember from the Clint Eastwood favorite Where Eagles Dare. She was an extremely talented actress, but she suffered so much from the bottle. It took its toll on her both mentally and physically. It seemed like she was making a comeback, but on April 2nd, 1975, she appeared in a London stage play with Honor Blackman, which had a triumphant opening night. That night, she took an accidental overdose of alcohol and barbiturates, and she was found deceased by her husband, Robert Shaw. He was completely traumatized from this event, and then just a few years later, while he was driving back to his home, he suddenly became ill. He stopped the car, stepped out, and then collapsed. He was picked up and rushed to a hospital, but he was pronounced dead once he got there. He was only 51 at the time of his death. Go back and watch this fascinating movie. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.